The heartbreaking tragedy of Drew Scott did not happen on a renovation site. It unfolded inside the private family life viewers rarely saw. For years, Drew appeared calm, prepared, and able to guide people through almost any difficult moment. But away from Property Brothers, one sudden loss placed him in a situation with no clear answer and no way to put things back as they were. The deepest pain was not only what had already happened, it was what someone close to his family would now never live long enough to see. So what happened? And why did it leave Drew facing a future he could not repair? The announcement appeared beside a collection of family photographs. There was no studio lighting, no renovation reveal, no carefully staged television moment. Drew was writing about Barb, the mother of his wife, Linda. Inside the family, she was known by another name, Habu. It was the name used by 10 grandchildren, including Drew and Linda's 2 young children. That detail immediately showed the size of the loss. Barb was not simply a relative who appeared during holidays. She held a central place inside an extended family. Drew described her as kind, selfless, and taken from them far too soon. Drew also included memories that would have meant little to strangers, but everything to the people involved. He remembered late nights. He remembered a card game. He remembered Barb's laugh. But Drew did not explain every circumstance surrounding her death. No detailed cause was shared in the first public announcement. What he did say was that she had been taken too soon. Later, he would describe the death as unexpected. That choice kept the focus away from medical speculation. The family revealed what they were ready to reveal. A woman they loved was gone. Linda had lost her mother. 10 grandchildren had lost Habu. And Drew felt unable to remove the pain from the people closest to him. That feeling was especially difficult for someone whose public role was built around solving problems. But this loss could not be negotiated. It could not be redesigned. It could not be repaired. To understand why Drew's words were so personal, we have to return to the beginning of his relationship with Linda. Because Barb had been part of his private life for nearly 16 years before the public ever learned what her loss meant. Drew met Linda during Toronto Fashion Week. The year was 2010. Linda was working at the event and wearing a playful costume. She carried a fashion police badge and handed out tickets for questionable outfits. It was light-hearted, but Drew noticed her. The meeting could easily have ended as a short conversation inside a crowded event. Instead, it led to what they later described as their longest first date. Their connection developed while Drew and Jonathan's television career was beginning to grow. In 2012, Linda moved into the Las Vegas home Drew shared with Jonathan. That arrangement placed her directly inside the Scott brothers' unusually close family and business relationship. She was not kept separate from Drew's work. She became part of the structure surrounding it. Later, Linda joined Scott Brothers Entertainment. Her role involved creative work and business responsibilities. That meant Drew and Linda were building more than a romantic relationship. Their personal and professional lives became connected. The relationship also brought Drew into Linda's family. That happened gradually. There was no single day when Barb officially became emotionally important to him. It happened through meals, holidays, family conversations, games played after other people had gone to bed, celebrations that were never meant for television. Drew learned how Linda's family communicated. He learned their traditions. He learned which jokes made Barb laugh. He learned that closeness was often built through repeated ordinary time. That is why his later tribute did not sound like a formal message from a son-in-law. It sounded like someone remembering a person who had become part of his own home. Years later, the public would see the two family backgrounds joined during Drew and Linda's wedding. But one quiet detail from their private life would eventually carry more emotional weight than the entire ceremony. It was a card game Barb loved, and after her death, it became one of the memories Drew could still hold. Drew proposed to Linda at Piano, a restaurant in Toronto. It happened in December 2016, but the marriage that followed would carry a deeper meaning. Drew and Linda married in May 2018. The Italy wedding was large and beautiful, yet some of its most important details were connected to family rather than celebrity. Drew's side brought Scottish heritage. Linda's side brought Chinese heritage. Their wedding design included symbols from both backgrounds. The message was clear. Linda was not being absorbed into Drew's public identity. The new family would carry both histories forward. That same respect continued after the ceremony. Drew became part of traditions that had existed in Linda's family long before he arrived. One of those traditions appeared in his memory of Barb. He recalled playing 4 color cards with her late into the night. Those memories showed how Drew's relationship with Barb had developed. She was not important only because she was Linda's mother. She became important because they had shared time without an audience. The card games also created a cultural link. Drew was not simply observing Linda's family from outside. He was participating. He was learning. He was allowing their customs to become part of his own family life. That makes his later grief easier to understand. When Barb died, Drew lost a person connected with almost every stage of his relationship with Linda. She had known them as a couple. She had seen them marry. She had watched them work. And eventually, she had seen them become parents. But parenthood did not come easily. Before Parker and Piper appeared in the family photographs, Drew and Linda spent years unsure whether those children would ever arrive. That private struggle gave Barb's future with them even greater emotional meaning. Because when a child has been deeply hoped for, every year with the people who waited for that child feels especially valuable. And that future was exactly what the family later lost. Drew had spoken openly about wanting children. He believed Linda would become a loving mother. He hoped he would become a good father. At first, that future seemed like the natural next chapter. Then came the fertility struggle. For approximately 2 years, Drew and Linda tried to grow their family without success. Each month brought hope. Then another disappointment. The uncertainty became exhausting because they did not initially know why pregnancy was not happening. Drew later said they felt lost. That word matters. Doctors eventually identified health issues involving Linda's thyroid. She was also dealing with Graves' disease. The diagnosis helped create a clearer medical picture, but it did not remove the emotional pressure. The couple went through treatment. That included IUI. It also included IVF. Drew was used to evaluating houses through facts: price, condition, location, risk. But fertility treatment did not offer the same clear control. The couple could follow medical advice. They could attend every appointment. They could support one another. They could not guarantee the outcome. That lack of control later connected painfully with Barb's death. Both experiences forced Drew to face limits. During the fertility struggle, he could not simply decide when the family would grow. During the tragedy, he could not decide how long Barb would remain with them. But the fertility journey also explains why Barb's missing future mattered so much. Parker and Piper were not children Drew and Linda had casually assumed would arrive. They were deeply wanted. Their family had waited. Their relatives had waited. Barb had waited. When Drew later wrote about the years she would never see, those words carried the weight of the years everyone had already spent hoping for the children. Eventually, the treatment worked. A baby was coming. The family prepared a nursery filled with objects connected to both Drew and Linda's childhoods. And when Parker arrived, his birthday linked the beginning of parenthood with the day their marriage had begun. Parker James Scott was born on May 4, 2022. The The date was also Drew and Linda's fourth wedding anniversary. The timing joined two major parts of their life: the day they had become husband and wife, and the day they became parents. After the uncertainty of fertility treatment, Parker's arrival carried relief. It also carried the emotional weight of everyone who had hoped with them. The nursery reflected that history. Drew and Linda created a nature-themed nursery. It was calm, warm, filled with objects that connected the new baby with the people who came before him. They also included a tiger. Parker had been born during the year of the tiger. That detail linked him with Linda's Chinese background. It continued the cultural connection seen during the wedding. Drew and Linda were not treating heritage as something displayed once during a ceremony. They were placing it inside their child's daily life. Linda later said, "The personal objects created a story showing how everyone had been waiting for Parker to arrive." That sentence reveals why his relationship with Barb mattered. Parker belonged to a wide family. He was not only Drew and Linda's child, he was a grandson, a nephew, a cousin, a new member of a group already prepared to love him. Barb was part of that waiting. Later photographs showed her spending time with Parker. Those images became evidence of a relationship that was still at its beginning. At the time, no one viewing the photographs would have assumed they might become part of a memorial. They were simply family pictures. A grandmother holding a child. A moment that seemed likely to be followed by hundreds more. That is the cruel difference created by an unexpected loss. Ordinary photographs change meaning after the person inside them is gone. The background becomes important. The date becomes important. The way the child is being held becomes important. Everything becomes part of the limited record. Parker's arrival gave Drew the family future he had wanted. 2 years later, that future expanded again. Linda gave birth to a daughter. Barb now had another young grandchild inside Drew's home, but the time available for that relationship would be far shorter than anyone expected. Piper Ray was born on May 21st, 2024. The family was overjoyed. Parker became an older brother. At first, he had to adjust to the attention suddenly being shared. Then Drew and Linda watched the relationship begin growing. Their son became curious about the baby. The distance between them slowly turned into affection. For Barb, the birth meant another granddaughter, another child to hold, another personality to watch emerge. Inside the wider family, she was known through the family nickname Habu. All 10 grandchildren used it. Drew's tribute included images from the family photo archive. Barb appeared beside the children. She looked like part of the future Drew and Linda were creating. Piper was still very young. Parker was only beginning to understand the shape of family life. That made the timing especially painful. Older grandchildren may carry direct memories. They may remember a voice clearly, a favorite meal, a repeated saying. Parker and Piper may depend more heavily on what the adults preserve for them. Photographs, videos, stories. The card game Drew remembered. The way Barb laughed. The kindness people described. That responsibility now belongs to the surviving family. They will have to help the children understand someone whose influence may remain larger than their own memories. This is where the tragedy becomes more than the death of a mother-in-law. Drew was watching Linda lose her mother. He was also watching his children lose a relationship they were too young to fully understand, and he could not know how much they would remember on their own. Jonathan's public message described Barb as loving. Drew described her as selfless. Those words created a picture of someone whose importance came through care. Her life was measured through the people around her. 10 grandchildren, adult children, sons-in-law. Relatives gathered around traditions that had been repeated for years. Then the pattern stopped. The loss was sudden. There had been no long public warning. No period in which viewers watched Drew prepare for what was coming. One day, Barb was part of the expected future. Then Drew was writing that his heart was broken. And when he spoke more fully about the death, one phrase revealed why he felt so powerless. Drew later said, "It was very unexpected." Those words explained the shock without revealing private medical details. The family had not publicly prepared for the loss. The future they imagined still included Barb. Then it did not. For Drew, that created a painful contrast with his public role. On Property Brothers, people come to him because they need direction. A buyer feels overwhelmed. Drew creates options. A budget becomes difficult. He explains the limits. A house fails the inspection. He finds another path. The format trains viewers to expect movement. A problem appears. Drew responds. The family moves forward. Barb's death offered no such structure. There was no solution. Drew could not find another option for Linda. He could not reduce the loss through better planning. He could not return the person who had disappeared. In his tribute, he described feeling helpless while trying to comfort the family. That admission carried unusual weight. Drew is often presented as calm because calm helps other people. But grief does not always respond to calmness. A husband can stay close to his wife. He can make calls, help organize relatives, take care of the children, prepare food, sit quietly. None of those actions remove the central pain. Linda's mother was gone. Drew could support her. He could not fix what had happened. That is private grief. It does not follow a production schedule. It can appear in the middle of work. It can return during a familiar game. It can be triggered by a photograph that once felt ordinary. Calling her kind was true. Calling her selfless was true. Saying his heart was broken was true. But no short tribute could fully explain 16 years of family life. That history remained inside Linda's family. Inside late-night conversations. Inside celebrations viewers never saw. Inside the relationship between Barb and her grandchildren. Drew's deepest pain eventually became clear. He was grieving the present, but his thoughts kept moving toward the future. Not only the birthdays Barb had already shared, the birthdays she would miss. Not only the children she had held, the adults they would become without her there. That future absence became the emotional center of the tragedy. When Drew announced the death, Parker was 3 years old. Piper was 1 year old. Both children had known Barb, but neither was old enough to understand the full meaning of the loss. That understanding would come later. Parker might eventually ask why Habu was not at a family gathering. Piper might recognize her face in a photograph before understanding the relationship. The adults would have to explain. Drew said the hardest part was knowing Barb would not watch the children grow into strong and compassionate people. That statement defined the lost future. Grief was no longer limited to the day she died. It stretched forward. Every stage of childhood now carried an absence. The first school years, changing interests, new words, performances, birthdays, graduations, questions about family history, the moments when a grandparent recognizes a habit inherited from someone else. These are future milestones the family had expected Barb to witness. Drew was not claiming to know exactly how every year would have unfolded. He was mourning the simple expectation that she would be present. The earlier fertility struggle made this even harder. Drew and Linda had spent 2 years unsure whether they would become parents. Then Parker arrived. Then Piper. The future had finally taken shape. Barb was part of it. Her death removed her just as the children's personalities were beginning to emerge. That is why the family photographs became so important. They proved the relationship had existed. They preserved touch, expressions, proximity. The children may one day see how Habu looked at them before they can remember those moments themselves. Photographs cannot replace a person, but they can defend a memory from disappearing completely. Drew's tribute became part of that preservation. His words gave Parker and Piper a future record of what their grandmother meant to him. She was not described through accomplishments. She was remembered through character, kindness, selflessness, laughter, family games, the way she loved 10 grandchildren. That is childhood memory being protected before it has fully formed. Drew could not give the children more time with Barb. He could help make sure they later understood the time they had. Before the final title payoff, one question remained. Why did the family speak openly about the grief while keeping other details inside the home? The answer appeared in the way they gathered after the death. Not to explain every circumstance publicly, but to remember Barb through the culture and relationships she had given them. Subscribe as we bring together the final family details behind Drew Scott's loss. The cause of death remained private in the first public reports. That absence should not be turned into a mystery the family never asked the public to solve. Drew gave a clear emotional account. The death was unexpected. Barb had been taken too soon. The family was devastated. Those were the details he chose to place outside the home. The remaining circumstances belonged to Linda and her relatives. Privacy can be especially difficult when a family includes famous people. A short message can create hundreds of questions. But answering every question does not necessarily help the people grieving. Drew focused on who Barb had been. He spoke about her laugh, her kindness, the grandchildren, the memories that would remain. The family then spent approximately 1 month together. That extended time suggests how seriously they treated the loss. Grief did not end after one service. Relatives remained close. They supported Linda. They spent time with Linda's father. The family's response also reflected Chinese tradition. Drew referred to a temple memorial. He also spoke about remembrance at Barb's home. These gatherings allowed relatives to honor her through familiar cultural practices. A temple provided one kind of space. The home provided another. Inside the temple, the family could recognize tradition, ancestry, and spiritual meaning. Inside the house, they could face the everyday rooms that still carried Barb's presence. That home remembrance may have been even more difficult. A person's absence often feels strongest in the places they occupied most naturally. A chair, a kitchen, a table where cards were played, an object no one has moved. Drew did not need to reveal those private scenes for the audience to understand their weight. What mattered was that the family chose gathering over isolation. They created time to grieve together. They allowed the children to remain surrounded by relatives. They honored Barb through the culture she had passed down. This also returned the title to Drew. His tragedy was not that he alone had lost someone. It was that he stood inside a network of grief. Linda had lost her mother. Her father had lost his partner. 10 grandchildren had lost Habu. Drew was trying to support all of them while carrying his own sadness. He could not control what had happened, but he could decide how present he would be afterward. Months later, another moment involving Parker would force Drew to think even more carefully about presence. The child copied something he had repeatedly seen his father do, and the imitation showed Drew how easily work could take time away from the family still in front of him. In June 2026, Drew described a moment involving Parker. Drew tried to hug him. The child moved away. Then Parker picked up a toy and pretended to take a work call. It was the wake-up call Drew did not expect. The child was copying his father, not the television version standing inside a finished home. The real person answering calls when the family was nearby. For Drew, the toy business call became painful evidence. Children notice where attention goes. They may not understand the reason, but they understand when a screen, meeting, or conversation repeatedly interrupts the room. Drew did not publicly state that this moment was caused by Barb's death. The connection should not be presented as a confirmed explanation, but the timing gives his reflection a deeper emotional context. Only months earlier, he had mourned the years Habu would never share with Parker and Piper. Now, he was facing the time he still had with them. Drew began protecting more of it. During filming breaks, he tried to return home rather than filling every open space with more work. He made time for Piper's music sessions. These choices sound small. That is exactly why they matter. Family life is usually built through small, repeated moments. A class, a meal, a hug, a child showing a parent something that appears unimportant but feels enormous to the child. Barb's death had shown the family that future time is never guaranteed. Parker's imitation showed Drew that available time can also disappear through distraction. The lesson was irreplaceable time. The complete title payoff is the unexpected death of Linda's mother, Barb, the woman 10 grandchildren knew as Habu. Drew announced that his heart was broken. He admitted feeling helpless. He said the hardest part was knowing she would not watch Parker and Piper grow up. That is the lasting lesson behind the tragedy. Drew's career is built around homes. He understands walls, budgets, locations, and the practical needs of families. But Barb's death confronted him with something deeper. A home is not made meaningful by the building alone. Its meaning comes from the people expected to be there. The person sitting at the table, the grandparent holding the baby, the laugh heard from another room, the familiar game played late at night. When that person disappears, the house remains. The meaning changes. That is what happened inside Drew's family. Barb had been woven into Linda's life long before Drew arrived. Then she became part of his life. She saw the relationship grow. She saw the wedding. She watched Drew and Linda struggle toward parenthood. She met Parker. She met Piper. But she would not see the children become adults. Drew could preserve her photographs. He could repeat her stories. He could help the children understand the name Habu. He could stand beside Linda. He could respect the family's traditions. He could not restore the missing years. That inability is the tragedy. Not a failed project, not a damaged business, not a television setback. A person was gone. And the future everyone expected with her was gone too. For a man who had spent years helping families imagine what their next chapter could look like, the loss carried a painful truth. Some chapters end without permission. There is no better offer, no second property, no final reveal that places everything back where it belonged. There is only memory, family, and the decision to be more present with the people who remain. That is the heartbreaking tragedy of Drew Scott. He could not fix the loss. He could only make sure that Barb's place inside the family was not forgotten. Subscribe for more videos like these.